We are now talking about the ethics of medical research. By definition, biomedical research is basic research, applied research, or translational research conducted to aid and support the development of knowledge in the field of medicine. Translation medical research seeks to take the medical discoveries that have been made in laboratory settings and translate it into medical practice that can be used by physicians to improve the lives of their patients. So you are taking a sort of observational or laboratory testing to be applied in medical practice. Why it is important? Why the medical research is important? Of course, it can provide important information about a disease, trends, risk factor, outcome, and so on. A sort of medical research is the clinical trial. It can provide information about safety and efficacy of certain new medication. This research can lead to a significant discoveries, for example, new therapy, new kits, new detection of equipments, and these discoveries will play a role in the longevity and the health of the subjects, and consequently it will lead to increased productivity of this population and will of course affecting the national economy. The research study has been divided into observation study, which is group of uh, patients. Okay, you are comparing and analyzing data as regard drugs, as regard disease, but nothing is new. There is what we call an analytical study or the experimental study. You are testing the impact of certain therapy and there is controlling factors. Okay, this may be in the lab, may be experimental on the animals. And the other form is the clinical trial. It is the true experimental study. You are testing something new on human subjects. The medical research studies can be divided into primary research or secondary research. The primary research either basic research, which is just a hypothesis, or you are doing a study on animal or cells or in the lab biochemical reactions. The second type is the clinical research, which is either pure experimental, like the clinical studies, or observational studies, like diagnostic study, prognostic study. Okay, this is what we have in thesis usually. Then we have an epidemiological research, either experimental, like the field and group study, or observation, like cohort study. Then we have a secondary research, which is either meta-analysis, which is a collection of a study on certain points all over the world. Then a further analysis to the data will be taking place. This is why we call it a meta-analysis. Another form of secondary research is the article review, how to write an article review. You are collecting data from different resources and then you will write your opinion depending on based evidence data. Whenever you are going to make a research, you should consider human rights of the participant, the ethical designs and conduct of research, and the scientific and technical competence. There is some codes that regulating the medical ethics. From these is Nuremberg Code. It involves the voluntary consent of the human subject. The experiment should be based and yield fruitful results for the good of the society. The experiment should be designed and based on the results of animal experimentation. You should avoid unnecessary physical or mental suffering or injury during conduction of the experimentation on human beings. No experiment should be done if there is any reason to believe that there will be a risk or disabling injury. Whenever you are thinking that this study will yield harm to your patient, you shouldn't do it. Whenever you are making the research, the risk should be minimal in relation to the importance of the problem. Proper preparation and adequate facility should be provided before experimentation. Scientifically qualified persons should be involved in the experiment. Here we are meaning the principal investigators. The human subject to that research has the right to terminate the experiment at any time. As I told you, it is not a contract. He is the participant signing the consent, but he can withdraw his attendance or his participation. It is not a contract from his side. You should be able to terminate the experimentation at any stage if you notice any risk. Another cause of ethics involved in a clinical trial you can follow is Declaration of Helsinki. It is started 1947 at the same time of Nuremberg Code, but it has been revised several times up to 2019. Is another form of code of ethics involved in the clinical trial and ethics of research. It is constituted from 32 paragraphs. It is talking about introduction and general principles, the risk and benefits of the patients, the vulnerable population, and defining them. What is the scientific requirements and research protocols? What is the research ethics committee? He's talking also about the privacy and confidentiality of the patient's data, the informed consent, the using of placebo, what is how to control a trial whenever you are using a placebo, what is the post-trial access, whenever someone is involved in a trial and he is comforted and cured for certain drugs, we ask the sponsor to provide the patient with the drug forever. He's talking also about the trial registration and the unproven interventions. Third code we will talk here about is the SIOMS, or the International Guidelines for Biomedical Research. He's talking about the ethical justification, validity, the review of the committee to the protocol, the ethical review of externally sponsored research. He's talking about the individual informed consent also as the previous two codes. He is talking about the essential information for prospective research subjects, the application of the sponsor and the investigator, the inducement to participate in research, the benefit and the risk of participation. As you see, they are similar in certain points and different in other points. In this SIOMS, it is talking about the research in communities with limited resources, how they should behave, the sponsor means, what is the choice of control in clinical trial, what is the burden and benefit in selection of subjects, how about making a research involving vulnerable person or children, how women should involved in a research, what is the situation if you had to involve a pregnant woman, what is the safeguarding confidentiality, what is the right of the injured patient for treatment and compensation, What is the ethical obligation of external sponsor to provide healthcare service? Okay, whenever you have a medical ethics involvement in a research, you should consider the paperwork itself for the research and the subject of the research. As regards the paperwork, this involves the responsible performance of the research, the responsible reporting of the research, the confidentiality and honesty in each step, the method of using information resources, and the other subjects with human and animal use in that research. What is the responsible performance of the research? Whenever you are making a design for a research, you should avoid subjectivity. Subjectivity means you are making science for science. You don't have an aim which is justified. Whenever you are doing any research, your aim is to help people, to improve the health of others. Okay, not to have just a science experiment and successful with no aim to serve people. The data selection and analysis should be unbiased. The data management, storage, retrieval, and ownership should be honest. The research material and information should be shared. That's why we are publishing our work whenever we are finishing from that research. What about the responsible reporting of research? The authorship criteria should be respected. This means the author, he is the one who is involved in the research. He is the one starting write the initial uh, words and the initial designs, and he is working by himself, and he is helping the others in finishing the different part of research as regards statistics, as regards analysis, as regards uh, drafting and finalization of the research. This is the author. He is not the one who is making only the statistics of research. He is not an author. He is not the technician that helping you in processing your specimen. It's not an author. He is not the head of the department. Okay, who is not involved in the research is not an author, and so on. The contribution of others should be mentioned. Whenever you are doing a certain step like statistics in with someone else, not you and not one of your supervisors, you should mention that. You should mention also if some technician helping you or some uh, other colleagues or assistant helping you. The previous work in the same subject should be acknowledged, and premature reporting should be avoided. Okay, let us start about the intellectual property. It is the right resulting from the intellectual creativity. Whenever you are making a research and you're reaching certain results, it is an intellectual creativity. Whenever you are writing that uh, research and publishing it, it is an intellectual creativity. Whenever you are making a book, it is an intellectual creativity. Okay, so this intellectual creativity will be protected by law. The law in Egypt divided it into literary and artistic property and industrial property. The law is number 82 to year 2002. It protects the rights of an author, particularly if he has writes a book or any work, if he is invented a computer program, if he is making a lecture or speeches, databases and work of art. Whenever you are doing something like this, the law will protect you. Okay? If someone violating your intellectual property, someone stealing your work, okay, there is a violation which is an imprisonment for not less than a month and a fine for not less than £5,000 and not exceeding £10,000 or both, according to the situation. the punishment will be increased. So when we can show you that you are stealing or violating the intellectual property of someone, if you are sale or rent a workbook or audio recording protected by the law without previous written permission of the author or the owner of the related rights. Let us make you this simple to you. If you pay money from workbook of another person or audio recording of another person without his permission, okay, you will be punished by law. Okay, we have here the author or the owner of related rights. Who is the owner of related rights? The author, you know, the author is the one who invented the or writing that work. Let us simply say I write a book, but I don't know how to publish that book and how to marketing this book. So I go to a publisher and give him that book, and he say I will buy your book, okay, and give you a percent of profits, and we sign a contract for this. In this part, he will be an owner of related rights. I am, as an author, the original, have the original rights, and he will have what we call a related rights because he pay me for that work and he is responsible with me for the intellectual property at the time. Okay, this is so if you get money without a previous permission from the author and those owner to related rights, this means you will be punished by. If you are publishing a workbook or audio, okay, on the network or telecommunication without prior written permission from the author or the owner of the related rights, it is the same. The removal of any protection technology used by the author of or the owner of related rights is considered a violation to the intellectual property. Sometimes you are going to the internet and trying to download certain book or certain lecture, and you find it is undownloadable and there is a technical difficulties or encryption preventing you from downloading this. Okay, at that time, if you are clever, and most of you are clever in this, you can break this technical protection. Whenever you are breaking this technical protection, this makes you violating the intellectual property to that subject, and this makes you vulnerable to be punished by them. By understanding the law of intellectual property, this means you cannot take the writing of the others and put it in your work without proper permission from that author. This means no copy and paste. So how would you write your thesis or your article without help from readings and writings of others? There is still three methods, which is called quotation, which is the copy and paste form, and this needs specific method for writing and citation. Another form is paraphrasing or rephrasing. You are taking the same idea and put it on your words. And lastly, we have summarizing. If you read a lot of articles and then you are summarizing the ideas in your own words. If you don't do so, okay, you will be accused by academic misconduct or academic dishonesty. If you take parts and copy and paste without writing them these words between quotation mark and writing the reference, okay, or if you are taking parts and make it looks like it is your own, you will be accused by plagiarism. So what is the definition of plagiarism? It is adoption or reproduction of the original creation of another author without proper acknowledgement and citation. Another form of academic misconduct is what we call the fabrication or falsification of data. You don't have a proper data, then you are putting data from your own mind, or you are putting information from your own mind, or you are putting a false citation for academic exercise or academic uh, writings. Another form of academic misconduct is deception, which occurs when you are providing false information to an instructor concerning a formal academic exercise. Another academic misconduct form is cheating, which is an attempt to give or obtain an assistance in a formal academic exercise without due acknowledgement, or if there is a bribery or paid services, okay, to another, or if there is sabotage, which is acting to prevent others from completing their work whenever there is a competition between you and them. What is the ethical guidelines for using information resources without accusation by academic misconduct? Don't copy word by word from anyone else unless there is a permission from that person. Whenever you are citing a source, use quotation mark if you are doing a quotation, or if you are doing what we call a copy and paste, use the quotation mark and give the author credit. If you are paraphrasing or summarizing, write the proper reference. Okay, learn how to correctly cite any reference. Okay, and use your own words and ideas. It is the best. Okay, all those was regard the paper and the works involved in a research. The intellectual property, the misconduct, the plagiarism, and so on. Okay, how about the subject, the participant in your research? This participant could be a human subject or it may be an animal. As regard the human subject, whenever you have a research, you should write your protocol, mention that there is an ethical consideration to that human participant. Uh, the experiment should be uh, expecting fruitful results. It should be designed and based on the results of animal experimentation. This we are repeating what we called a Nuremberg Code, if you are remembering this. Okay, so we are adopting this Nuremberg Code in our research on human subjects. Avoid unnecessary physical and mental suffering. No experiment should be done if there is any risk to the patient. The risk should be minimal. Okay, there is proper preparation before you are starting your experimentation. The experiment should be conducted only by scientific personnel. There must be a voluntary consent of your human participant, and they can terminate the experiment at any time. The researcher should be able to terminate the experiment at any stage if there is any risk, and you are taking precaution to respect the privacy of the subject. What is the board or committee designed by institution to review, approve the initiation and conduct periodical review of biomedical research involving the human subject. It is composed of physicians, qualified personnel like pharmacologists, biologians, attorneys, lay personnel of prominence in public life, and no one of them should be involved in research projects under review. What is the responsibility of the ethics committee? There is adequate need for such a project, not otherwise obtainable. Okay, all research should be justified. The benefits from that research should outweigh the risk, and the proposed methods and techniques should be suitable for that idea and that research. Uh, there must be a sort of monitor to that research. Whenever you are doing a research, I can ask, as an ethics committee, I can ask for your consent, and I can ask for the progress of your research at any time. It considered the ethical and moral aspect of the proposed study. The ethics committee should be sure that those who are conducting the research are properly qualified and reliable persons, and adequate informed consent procedures should be taken over. Its review and approval is mandatory before the starting of any research. The ethics committee should ensure that the responsible investigator is appropriately experienced in that field, and it is concerned with the protection of vulnerable groups. This is one of her main acts, is the protection of people and the proper informed consent. And this is لائحة أدب المهنة. This is by the syndicate, and this is a sort of simplification to the Arab reader if they want to read.